Hi, Mama.
Good morning, Lizzie Lassiter.
Welcome to another episode of today's yoga question. Before we get started, I had two announcements for our listeners. I wanted to remind people, if you're enjoying these conversations, that these are a sort of preview, rehearsal of the content that will be in our audio course that's available for pre-sale at my mom's website, judithhansenlassiter.com. And it's for an introductory price right now available. And secondly, if you want to submit your own question for the next episode or upcoming episodes of today's yoga question, please comment below wherever you're listening, either on Facebook or on my YouTube channel, Lizzie Lassiter. Okay, today's yoga question is, what is Shavasana?
Shavasana is a Sanskrit word, as we know, most of us, that actually means corpse, C-O-R-P-S-E, corpse. And although some people are uneasy with that translation, that's what it is. And so Shavasana is a pose traditionally taught at the end of asana class, in which we lie down on the floor and become dead to the outside world. And we therefore take our energy and our intelligence and our awareness and our focus inside. Uh, it has a lot of functions, physical functions of that go along with relaxation, physical benefits of it. It tends to, and this is how physiologists speak, stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the portion of our autonomic or automatic, in a way you could say, nervous system, which maintains our health and well-being and is characterized by controlling almost entirely long-term functions. That is, functions in the body like immunity and growth and repair, things that take a long time. And its opposite is the sympathetic nervous system, which tends to deal with immediate need for safety and protection and to protect life. There is one other function that the sympathetic nervous system does, which is helps to maintain what we call the tone of the arterioles and the arteries, a sympathetic tone of the blood vessels. So it does help to regulate blood pressure, one of the things that does. But generally, we can make this fairly simple yet effective dichotomy between the go-go nervous system and the nervous system.
Okay.
So, but Shavasana is it's more than just a physical act. I mean, when we bring consciousness to anything, to a pose, to a task, it becomes something more. I mean, if you think about it, meditation is just sitting still. Yeah, sitting still, just. It's sitting still that it becomes a ritual. We imbue it with meaning and intention, then it has a power to shift our consciousness and our mentation in a way that doing something in a rote manner doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a lot of symbology for our practice. At the end of our asana practice, we let go completely of doing. We close our eyes and we arrange the limbs in a comfortable position. In my purview, it's done with some propping, which creates flexion in all the joints, because flexion is the position, slightly bent, is the position of relaxation. Just like we curl up, most people sleep on their side. Maybe they start on their back, but then they roll to their side and curl up.
Mm-hmm.
And that flexing and rounding reminds, quote unquote, the nervous system, I believe, of its safety in the womb,
Mm-hmm.
its curled position in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
So, shall I continue?
Yes, I have more follow-up questions, but
All right, go ahead.
so what is the difference between what we do when we lie down for Shavasana and then what we do when we lie down to go to sleep?
It's pretty much a matter of degree. It's a difference in degree rather than kind, because when we practice Shavasana, we're on the same end of the mental continuum, physical continuum as sleep, but we don't go all the way. So I was asked many years ago in the 70s to teach a yoga class for some high school students after school one day. I'm not quite remembering how this came about, but I went to do it, and in San Antonio of all places, and I was trying to explain to them at the end a little bit about what Shavasana was, and one of the young men said something to me that I never forgot. And this is the joy of the yoga journey. If you're open and have even a little bit of humility, you will find that people teach you as much as you teach them. Mm-hmm. So he said, oh, I get it. My body sleeps and my mind watches. And I said yes, but inwardly I was thinking, wow, I'm going to remember that. Because that kind of sums it up in a very simple way. That we do rest the body profoundly. All the physiological parameters we could measure, like heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rhythm, and others, show a state that a physiologist would recognize on a graph, on a chart, as a state of quiescence and rest. But we maintain still a toehold in, we're a little bit away from sleeping.
We're witnessing. Sometimes my students fall asleep in Shavasana, and I don't always know what to tell them afterward.
Tell them they're horrible people and they should never come back to your class. No, everyone falls asleep in Shavasana once in a while, and because we live in such a sleep-deprived culture, most of us, our default is just to do more, take more caffeine, keep going, and we have some kind of personal and collective belief that resting is something we'll do later. We can put it off, or we don't really need it, or we can make it on this much sleep. So everyone falls asleep in Shavasana, and usually it's because the person is sleep deprived and they need more sleep. It's very common. It's what worries me more than someone falling occasionally asleep in Shavasana, Lizzie, is that the student who comes every single week and falls asleep. Mm-hmm. Because they're not getting the deliciousness of Shavasana. Their body is, it's like someone who needs water to live. They just drinking so much water. They can't just savor the water, or they can't do it slowly. They have to do it. So they start to go toward relaxation, and their body just says, oh, thank God, oh, thank God, oh, thank God, and it goes into sleep, because sleep is a necessary human state. It has wonderful physiological benefits, processing information, quote unquote, cleaning out the brain. There's a lot of studies on that now, and it restores us in a way that is deeply important for our not only our physical and mental health, but our emotional health. And so what I often do with people who tend to fall asleep is I put them in supported reclining pose, which is a bolster long ways up on 2 blocks of different heights, and then they sit next to the bolster and lean back, put some support under the knees and the ankles and something under the head, and then the arms need support as well, but so they're not just hanging down, but this lifts them up a little bit. And there's an interesting point on that I'd like to mention, if mm-hmm. you're willing to hear a little more, mm-hmm. is that there's a part of your brain called the RAS, all capitals, reticular activating system, and it's the nerve tract that wakes up everybody else. It's like the mom going around waking everybody up for school. It's the nerve tract that wakes up the other nerve tracts, and it is correlated, its activity in part is correlated with physical position. And so when you're upright, it's more active. And when you start moving from sitting upright to lying back at about 45-degree angle is when it really kicks in. And that's the angle that everyone knows from being in a lazy boy chair or a deck chair, or if they are lucky enough to get an airplane seat that moves back a ways. And everyone knows that angle, because you know that if you get to that angle, about halfway back, roughly, you feel yourself start to relax. And so that's when that angle is when the reticular activating system is beginning to kick in its activity by calming down, however we say it physiologically, it stops stimulating the other nervous parts of the nervous system. And so, but it's not as shut down as in sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of halfway toward that. So I use that angle of propping in Shavasana to keep people from falling asleep who always fall asleep. And I also use it in Shavasana if someone is coughing a lot when they lie down.
Mm-hmm.
Then I prop them up a little bit. So it really works well as a beginning pose in restorative yoga, because it starts to relax people from their busy day. It doesn't just try to take them from walking into Shavasana. So it warms them up, if you will, metaphorically, for a Shavasana state. But it's extremely useful in the other extreme for people who always fall asleep, to kind of keep them slightly awake so they can hover in that beautiful world of relaxing.
That's exactly where I wanted to go next, the world of relaxing. I've heard you speak before about stages of Shavasana. Can you elucidate those for us now?
I will elucidate for you, darling. This is my opinion. I think of Shavasana as having 3 categories, 3 levels. And the first one is physiological relaxation, where we could measure it, we could test it, we could see it, where it's objectively verifiable that your nervous system is now operating in a different way. And that takes a well-rested person. If you happen to know anyone who's well-rested, you could check it out. It takes about 15 minutes. And so to me, what I think is that often we confuse relaxation with Shavasana. But to me, Shavasana can't occur until I'm relaxed. It's only when I'm deeply relaxed that Shavasana starts. So Shavasana to me doesn't include that relaxation period. So we need to put people on the floor 12 to 15 minutes, and then they can move into the second stage. Once they're relaxed, they're ready. It's sort of the Tadasana of Shavasana. It's the beginning. So the second stage I call in Shavasana, and that is what I call a Pratyahara state. Now, Pratyahara is the 5th limb of Patanjali. Patanjali is credited with being the author of the Yoga Sutra. There are a lot of Yoga Sutras, but the one that we commonly use today, the 8 limbs, and it's the 5th limb, and it means the conscious or the willful or the intentional movement of our attention away from the edges of our consciousness. So in a Pratyahara state, you hear the telephone ring, but it doesn't bother you. You don't dance with that sound. It doesn't stimulate, oh my God, who's calling me? Should I get up? Should I answer the phone? Oh gosh, I don't want to get up. You don't get stirred up by it. You just hear the airplane fly by or hear a voice in the distance. And you don't dance away with your mind. You just stay in this state. And I've seen this so often, probably thousands of times now, that when people start to get really relaxed, you'll say, how is the setup? How's the pose? And they'll go, So I call it the stage. They're really getting inward and starting Pratyahara, but when they're really there, you'll say, how is it? And they can't even really speak. They hear you, but there's no attraction to the external world. And that's where I want to be every day. And that's where I want my students to be every day, at least 5 minutes in that state, which added up, 15 plus 5 is a 20-minute Shavasana.
Mm-hmm. And then what's the third stage?
The third stage is what I call a shunya. So in Sanskrit, the A at the beginning often designates or signifies a negation. So we say ahimsa, ahimsa, non-harming.
Mm-hmm.
It's a not. So ashunya begins with that, and then shunya, which is emptiness. So it's non-emptiness. It's not fullness and it's not emptiness. It is what it is, and often we know that state of a shunya when we come back from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes students will say, I went somewhere. And you'd never know a shunya when you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I believe, this is my theory, is that there's a slight disconnect from ego. That there is no witness in that state. There is just a state. So the only way we know a shunya is by its absence. Like you and I are not in a shunya right now. But if we did a deep Shavasana, we might get there and then we would come back. And we weren't asleep. We were in another state. Because you can watch yourself sleeping. You can watch yourself dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the stages. And I think, if I may, that something that I mourn, and this seems like a strong word, but doesn't feel strong to me, in yoga classes is that students are not given, they're given a 5-minute quote-unquote Shavasana, which is not even enough time to relax deeply, much less enter the state of pratyahara that what I think Shavasana is, because I think that second stage is where the healing begins. And I can't even count the numbers of conversations, emails, feedback from people who say, oh my God, my student said her headache went away. Or, just from that to amazing, the rash I had on my skin went away.
Mm-hmm.
I slept through the night for the first time in 5 months after doing this relaxation. So it's extremely powerful, and we need to give enough time and space. And if I may say one more thing from a teaching perspective, don't talk. Because students go deeper when you don't talk. Because listen to this one last thought, if I may. When we're teaching Shavasana, quote unquote, something we can't teach is we can't teach people how to taste a mango. We can just hand them a mango. So we can't teach anyone how to relax. We can just create the environment in which they do it. And so start them out with what I call the blah blah, the yoga teacher blah blah. You might paint the picture of let your limbs drop softly into the floor as if the floor were a pillow holding you with great love, and feel the breath moving like the wind through the trees, arising and falling beyond your volition. It's, paint the pictures, give the images, the blah blah the yoga teachers have in the beginning, and then be quiet, because for two reasons. Either the student is listening to you and not having their own experience, which I don't want them. I want them to have their own experience. Or they're not listening to me, so why am I talking? So stop talking and give their most of Shavasana. Don't be afraid of silence. I don't know, take up knitting, read the sutras, meditate. Do something. You don't need to talk and fill the airways in Shavasana. If you really want your students to go deeply, be quiet.
It's a great gift. You once said to me that I'm giving my students the gift of holding the space for them, and I'm the only person in their life who says, come here, I take care while you lie down.
Yes. Yes.
Thank
We
you.
are the only ones, yoga teachers, we are the ones that hold the keys to the kingdom. Because in this sense, it's not us personally, it's this art and this treasure that we have been given. And I give a namaste, deep and profound, to all the people who came before me that allowed me to join the stream, the river of this practice, that we're the only ones who teach them that, who honor that. And it's really how you begin to teach people to meditate. Because I believe that an integrated person has no tension in their body, in their mind, in their emotions. There's no tension there, because tension is a holding on, and there's an ability, I believe it's possible to have the ability to be so present that you don't have to grasp life. It finds you.
Thank you so much, Mama.
You're welcome. I enjoy our time together in this way.
Yes, thank you for sharing your wisdom with me, with us.
May we live like the lotus
At
at home
home in the
in the muddy
muddy.
water. Namaste.
Namaste. If you liked listening to this conversation, you might like our Living Your Yoga audio course that's available for pre-order on my mom's website, judithhansenlassiter.com. Thank you so much. Until the next episode, namaste.